afternoon. This is Barb with Inspire Me 360, and I wanted to do a video today about the concept of letting your brain and your consciousness just simply exist, and why this is so incredibly important. So if we think of any of the great scientists, inventors, great thinkers of the past, they spent a lot of time in quiet contemplation and solitude. So if we think of people like Tesla or Einstein or, any of the great minds of humanity, one of the key principles that was so important to each and every one of them was a relationship with their own consciousness and their own mind. And why I feel like this is so applicable for modern day humans and humanity is that, unfortunately, due to the way that our world is set up, it leaves very little room for the individual, unless they are extremely diligent, to be with themselves and by themselves in a contemplative state. So what do I mean by a contemplative state? Essentially what I'm talking about is when you are allowing your mind to be its unique vibration. So the way it thinks, the way it calibrates, having new expressive ideas instead of tuning into another's frequency or another's channel. And I want to divulge this concept a little bit further. So when we think about our interactions with the external world, we have so many ways we can interact with the external world, especially with the digital age, okay? So you see this everywhere. You have little kids walking around with these little, cell phones, iPads. The amount of information that is streaming into our consciousness at any given time is just crazy. But the thing about it is, it's great to have all of this content and all of this learning, all these learning capabilities, but unfortunately, to some degree, it prevents individual thoughts from springing forth, okay? And you have to quiet your mind, and you have to quiet your being, and you have to be in absolute solitude to be able to tap into the universal intelligence. It's so incredibly important. So if you, really want to be a dynamic creator, if you really want to become, one with all it is, or one with everything that is, and tap into the quantum field, you have to be okay with solitude. And I'm going to take this a step further. You have to be okay with the type of solitude in which you're not really doing anything other than contemplation, okay? Whether that is sitting down, meditating with a journal, writing down your own thoughts. It's extremely important to be able to sit with yourself, know yourself, and start to be okay with the very unique thoughts that are flowing directly from the universal intelligence into your particular conscious frequency. Because again, we're all like little radios. So when we are picking up elements and things that the universe is sending us, only we can pick up that certain message, because again, we vibrate at a certain unique frequency. So it is so very important that we get in touch with who we are, totally independent of other people, on our own. And I'm going to go into a little bit more explanation of why this is, so that you can really understand what I'm trying to teach here, and explain again, bringing and bridging this practice into your everyday life, and how you will see the expansion of what you are really grow in amazing, unique ways, and your creativity will really just start to blossom when you can get okay with being 100% in your own space, in your own consciousness, on your own. Let's kind of look at an example here. So if you're in your house and you've got a lot of family around and you're constantly getting distracted by family, friends, maybe you live in an environment where you have roommates and they're always kind of bumping into you and distracting your train of thought. In any given day, from the moment that we are waking up till the moment we go to sleep, if we are continually pulled into the matrix of other people's auric fields, we're never really sitting in contemplation with ourselves. And to become an extremely deep thinker, we need to be okay with alone time and actually crave alone time. I personally spend hours a day on my own by myself in a work situation, but I've never needed, even as a small child, I've never needed a lot of interaction with others to feel okay, because I find, and I've always felt, that I'm my most creative when I am alone. So whether that is painting or creating some sort of a project or figuring out a problem, when I'm problem solving, I'm always very much better at it when I'm completely alone. Now, I might come back to the drawing table or to a meeting and then discuss what I've downloaded with other people, for sure. I mean, that's part of living in a collaborative world. And again, because I run many companies, there's times that I'm going to have to defer to all of the amazing people that reside within my businesses, and it's all of our great minds coming together to problem solve and figure out new exciting ways of doing things. But what is so essential, and what is actually a little bit alarming to me, is what we've done with that personal space that normally our minds are supposed to occupy totally autonomously from any other distraction. So when we have devices, specifically cell phones, tablets, televisions, all of these different things that are streaming information to us continually, the issue with that is that our consciousness is never actually tuning into our own frequency and getting our own downloads, because we're continually streaming information through our conscious mind of regurgitated, already thought information. Because when you're watching your phone, you're watching Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, television, you are just basically recycling thought forms that have already existed. And why is this a problem? Well, especially for the younger generations, if we're teaching their brains, just like, any kind of animal in a laboratory, if we're teaching their brains to need constant stimulation, this is a very detrimental thing, because first of all, it breeds a lot of anxiety in and of the fact that they are not comfortable being quiet within their own space, okay? And they are essentially needing all of this external information and entertainment to feel aware and to feel safe within their own consciousness. Because remember, from a small child, we learn about the world how we experience it. So if we're continually, by parents, being put in front of a device, and again, I mean, parents are well-meaning when they're doing this. They may have chores to do, tasks to do, and they just want the small child to be essentially like being good, be good, sit down, here's your tablet or the cell phone, don't make a fuss, whatever. But the problem with that is that, again, we're teaching the minds of small children to need this, to physically need this kind of hyper-stimulation all the time. And the problem with that type of hyper-stimulation is it becomes like an addiction. So the brain constantly needs this feed of information, and it never quiets itself. And so we're creating a generation of perpetually anxious individuals. And when you take away that incredible stimulation, because when you look at a tablet or you look at anything online, it's marketing, it's very high impact, there's a lot going on, and it's not that quiet, contemplative state that our brains need to tap into. How can I make this applicable in terms of those of you that are watching this video, and why does it matter? Why should you really pay attention to how devices and overstimulation is affecting your brain? Well, okay, obviously, if you looked at the way that life was 100 years ago, we didn't have the rapidity and the speed of information and things coming towards us as they do now, okay? The world is hyper interconnected, which is good in some ways because, again, it prevents a certain amount of propaganda. However, whoever controls the media and controls the sources of media are, again, really going to have a firm grip on the information that the masses are getting. Now, depending on what country you live in, it's going to be more open, but the best way of sharing information still is going to be gathering in groups, discussions, debates, really having deep introspective conversations that are actually propagating new thought forms, okay? And what do I mean by that? I just mean thinking new thoughts, thinking outside the box, not being afraid of the avenues that your consciousness or your brain, the output of your thought forms will go into when you're by yourself, okay? That's also how we prevent anxiety, because if any individual is not comfortable being alone with oneself and feeling safe with oneself in this quiet state, that's really what is the benchmark of anxiety disorders is this fact that people are afraid to be alone. And why on earth would anybody be afraid to be alone with themselves? Now, this is the most intimate relationship you will ever experience in life, is having this alone time with yourself. And I see, and I've experienced so many individuals that want to merely distract themselves from themselves. They're afraid to be alone with the beingness of their own consciousness. And I'm not entirely sure why that would be, but it is a trend that I see. People always want to have a friend around. They always have to have an activity. They always have to have the television on, or, if the television isn't on, they want to be on their phone, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on Facebook, somehow projecting their consciousness into the external world. And why this will prevent you from becoming highly intelligent is, again, it's just regurgitated thoughts. You're just really looking at something that is already out manifest. It's already in existence. So as much as you can learn about it, you can quantify it, you can qualify it, you can see what it is in a certain tangible way, or you can have an interpersonal relationship where you're expressing with other individuals. It's not the same kind of really insightful, really surprising downloads that you can get from the divine matrix, the universe, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it. I find that I get the most interesting information possible when I'm alone, when I'm really in a quiet space, and these ideas just pop right into my head. And again, I know that they're unique, I know that they're new, I know that they may be a culmination of multiple other thought forms kind of being synchronized and coming together in a new fashion. But again, that's how the great thinkers, Einstein, Tesla, all of these incredibly beautiful minds throughout history were able to come up with some of the most mind-blowing inventions and calibrations and calculations, okay? It came through this quiet solitude and a reverence and a trust for the unseen forces, because it's really those unseen forces that are behind everything that we see as out manifest, okay? This will also really help you if you are trying to create the life of your dreams. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why that is. Why is solitude such an integral part of manifestation or creating the life that you've always dreamed of? Well, first of all, a big reason that is because when we go into the silence, we're really tapping into our flow state. We're really getting aligned with our individual core soul frequency. And when we tap into who and what we authentically are without any of the distractions, we really start to hone in on our life's purpose, our mission for being here. We really start tapping into another aspect of love. So when we are removed from the individuals or the activities or the memories of things we really love, that's when we can kind of reflect, and a deep kind of reverence is formed. And this is, again, another facet of the energy of love, because love can be expressed obviously when we're in unison or in proximity to another, in engagement, in dialogue, doing things. But love is actually understood very deeply when it's at a distance. We start to have an appreciation for others in our life when we have a bit of distance from them, because in and of that, we are realizing all of the different intricacies of that other individual and what we really love about them, what we really admire about them. And it's really important for adoration and admiration to exist, because it's a contemplative state. We have to step back from all of the hustle and bustle and all of the activity to be able to go into that sanctum of the inner areas of the mind and the consciousness, to be able to perceive the beautiful aspects of life. And that's the whole essence of contemplation. So as you start to be, come more one with who you are, as you embark upon this spiritual journey, it is to some degree a journey of solitude. Not complete solitude, but you have to give yourself permission to go into this very quiet, alone state and be with yourself and really fall in love with the self that you are. And I don't necessarily mean falling in love with the external self, like in a vain way. I mean falling in love with the creative essence that is you. So that vibratory field, that magic that is unique to each and every life form on this planet. And it's certainly not unique to just human beings. It's also, every plant, every animal has this field, this energy biofield that is representative of its own unique frequency. So again, what do you actually do when you go into this contemplative state, and how does it look? How does it express? Now, certainly I can't jump into your body and you can't jump into my body, so I can't tell you exactly what it's going to feel like for you. But for myself, it feels like a very intense raising of my vibration. So when I'm not distracted by the other vibratory fields of other individuals and their needs, because anytime you are with another individual, they're going to have a certain electromagnetic pull on your field. It's due to their needs and wants and what they're trying to garner from the interaction with you. But when you are complete, and depending on the person, depending on if they're negatively polarized or positively polarized, again, you might feel a real raising of your vibration if they're a very positive, inspirational person, and you'll feel a lot of love and light. If they are in a lower vibrational state, then you might feel really, really drained from them. What I find with being, with myself is I feel a huge raise in my vibration, especially if I'm in a positive mood. Now, I'm not saying I can't be in a bad mood, for sure I can, but generally, when I am in my alone time, I see a consistent sort of uptick in my mood, my aura, and just my expression, or the way that I feel life unfolding around me. Again, what is it going to feel like to be alone with yourself? Well, first of all, you're going to get to do everything that you want to do. So you get to pick what you want to eat. You don't have to compromise. You get to be lazy if you want to be lazy, watch a movie, eat an ice cream sandwich, read a book. You can have a shower. You don't have to have a shower. Like you can really just be authentically you in that moment. And a lot of times when we're in the presence of others, we're trying to I guess, particularly be the best versions of ourselves, to be alone with yourself. It's just the fact that you don't have to compromise. You really get to get into your own flow state. And this is really where you can tap into your creative energy. At first, being alone might feel like a little bit depressing if you're not used to doing this. So you might actually feel like anxious or antsy, or you have to go turn on the TV, or, you know, one of the best things that you can do to be alone with yourself, to just start this practice, is cleaning. So organizing and cleaning while you're alone, and really getting into the vibe of doing some sort of activity by yourself. Pair it with listening to music while you're cleaning and organizing. Okay, and then again, you get into your own vibration. You start to feel yourself, essentially, okay? And then from there, you'll find, again, that things will start to pique your attention. You'll have different thought forms coming into your mind. Like the other day, I used to knit with my grandma all the time. We would, you know, knit different things when I was a little girl. And I thought, you know what? I want to knit. You know, I don't even know where that came from, but instantaneously kind of popped into my mind. And I started thinking about, okay, I'm going to go to the craft store. I'm going to get some, you know, spools of yarn, and I want to start knitting again. And not just like, you know, knitting randomly, but like if I'm going to be watching TV, one of the things that my grandma and I used to do was we would sit there and knit while we would be watching a movie. And it was really kind of a fun, cool thing we did together. So again, these little memories will also pop into your mind, or things that you remember about yourself. Because again, as we get older, oftentimes we kind of lose parts of ourselves that we put on a shelf because all of the craziness of adult life kind of devoured our inner child or our creativity. So this is one of the really exciting things that will happen when you spend time alone. Now, if you are somebody where, you know, you're raising a family, or like myself, where you're running companies and it's very busy and there's a lot of obligations, well, then you have to be very diligent to schedule this alone time for yourself. And again, if you have a very, very busy family, you have to be willing to put those boundaries up and let your family know, you know what, I need to take 2 hours a day by myself. I'm going to be shutting my door, shutting my study door, whatever it is, and I'm going to be reading a book or meditating or doing that alone time with myself. And I know that that sounds like a lot of time to take away from your family, but a cool thing will happen if you teach your children to do this as well, that they go into their creative space. You know, for me, it's painting, it's dancing, it's writing. I love writing poetry. I love writing stories, and especially getting into a lot of, you know, books and esoteric teachings, these kind of things. But if you give yourself the permission to do these things, you also open up that window for your children to be able to do these kind of things. And I think one of the most magical things you can do for your family and yourself is to turn off devices, to turn off the television, turn off the iPad, the, you know, cell phone, whatever it is, and really go into the state of just being with yourself in this alone time. Meditation is also a really cool thing. To define meditation for me, it's just sitting with myself. It is just being in a contemplative state. I don't worry too much about what my mind is doing. If it's thinking a bunch of crazy thoughts, great. If it's thinking about not much, that's wonderful too. It's very peaceful. So again, just reminding you that alone time is extremely valuable, and this alone time will lead to a lot of incredible intelligence, untapped intelligence that you probably didn't realize you were capable of if you just spend a little bit of time alone. So I am wishing you all a great weekend, and hopefully some alone time as well.